Hello, everyone, and welcome to RingMasters, the show where we interview the top brass of SL Wrestling to get down to brass tacks on what it takes to play, program, and be the game. My name is DJV. I'm the founder and Fed owner of Decibel for Wrestling since 2K22, founder of the SL Wrestling Archival and History Cataloging Project Fight Forever, and I'm about where we've been and excited about where we're going. For this episode today, I have none other than an SL Wrestling legend. Who do I have on the show today?
Hi, I'm Eric Stewart. I am one of the founding members of SL Wrestling. I was there day one for the first show and have participated on and off since about 16 years ago. I co-owned and did most of the operation management and booking for SLCW before it became DCWF. And then since then, on and off, have worked throughout SL Wrestling. But this is back during the days where obviously everything was a bit of a Wild West. So I got my hands dirty with just about everything you can with SL Wrestling.
Awesome. Yeah, you were right there at the very beginning. How did you
First
manage?
show, yeah.
Yeah. How did you come about, like, I guess, being involved in the creation of SL Wrestling? Like, what was?
So
Oh,
yeah, there's Second Life was really big back at that point. And I would just log in and pop around and see what people have done. I always like the creative aspect of the metaverse, and I would look up wrestling over and over, like once, maybe a month or two. But I would consistently check. And I remember one time I saw SLCW, Second Life Championship Wrestling, and there had been pose ball wrestling before then. And it clearly was fitting a specific niche and not the one that I was looking for with that. And that's fine. They're welcome to do what they do. But it never really had the pro wrestling feel that I was hoping to find. And I remember there's a day that I saw an ad pop up in places for SLCW. And I showed up, and the very first show was coming up in like a week and a half. And I was like, I want to be a part of this. I really, really, really want to be a part of this. And immediately started, I remember sitting my avatar there until somebody else came in that had I think like a group tag on or something like that. And I pinged them. And I was like, what do I need to do? And they're like, oh, you got to talk with Ivan or Maddie. And I was like, okay, cool. Talk with them. And I think it was maybe later that day, they reached back out to me. I was like, look, I'm interested. I had done some e-fetting stuff before then. I was like, this seems like a really cool place to be. Looking back, it was a nightmare because it's mainland. It's old school mainland. The building legitimately only had 3 walls. The 4th wall was missing. They just never put it up.
oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it was insane. And the logo that we had did not look like wrestling. As a matter of fact, anybody who still has that logo will show you it looks like if we're trying to get away from the very adult nature of pose ball wrestling, our logo was not doing us any favors. It didn't look like wrestling. It looked like just one dude railing another guy. So we were like, we need to start looking and changing some of these things. It was this weird mesh of, like, you could tell it was so new. There were no videos, there was no pyrotechnics, there was no click to go through ropes. It was just that. It was just prim, and it was ugly prim. Nothing was really well textured. The designs that you see nowadays are leaps and bounds beyond. And I was like, look, I know enough in Second Life, I could be useful. And they brought me on board, and I was there helping out with the first show. My first time performing in the ring was the second show. And a couple months later, things shifted. One of the owners stopped going. to the shows. He didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And the other wanted to have the ownership title without actually running the Fed. And myself and Alpin had already started creating the system. To that point, both went, I don't like how this is running, and so Alpin basically pushed to gain ownership, bought the land, like paid for the land and did that, and I pushed to basically run the Fed. So yeah, I did all the booking and stuff like that, and then everything else that came after that. But yeah, that was basically the start of it. Was just the random search leading me to what's this? Oh, I want to be involved in this. Then first show being involved backstage, and second show going out wrestling, and then the whirlwind of events that happened so quickly after that.
Heck yeah. In terms of that, like you mentioned that there was kind of like there was a little bit of a split between like being having Alpencrist being the Fed owner and then you being the showrunner. How would you describe yourself as kind of the showrunner back then in terms of kind of your personal philosophies of like how to book the show, kind of the challenges you faced, and uh, like when we're creating compelling storylines and trying to develop characters and the like.
Sure. When we first started out, a lot of what a lot of people hate about some wrestling fans or just any kind of situation in general like that was things like politics or favoritism, and the people that were originally booking were just not really being fair about it. We had this woman by the name of Catherine Blackadder, who is an absolute saint of a woman. But more than that, if we filled those stands, at least 2/3 of them had fans of Kitty Cat, Catherine Blackadder's group tag on. And they didn't want to promote her at all. They were like, I don't want to book her. And I finally, like, I'm not the kind of person when I feel things are unfair that I stay quiet. So it's like, I want to know, why are you not wanting to promote her? Why are you not wanting to book her? And I finally got told, well, it's because she's not presenting the way we think a popular female wrestler should. And I went, oh, it's because she's not sexualizing herself. No. And immediately turned around and went, okay, look, this guy, if we're going to have, they had already crowned a champion really early on. And I was like, this guy, you should be building up to this. These guys work really well together. No, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to build this guy. And I'm like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He looks lost in the ring. He's not entertaining. It's bland. It's boring to watch. He has no real character. Why are we pushing this? Well, I mean, I don't understand why you're pushing for your favorites. And I immediately realized, again, we're playing favoritism. So, at that point, again, Maddie, the original owner, quote unquote, disappeared after 2 weeks. And there's a whole aspect of a thing called Hell Saturday where we got griefed to hell and back, and nobody had permissions to kick. Nobody had permissions to remove objects. It was absolute insanity. And we asked for permission for that, and he didn't want to give it to us. So we said, look, if you're not going to be here, just don't be here. When it got to that point, Alpin and I had I want to say like a good 4 or 5 hour chat, and it turned into, look, I don't want to really run things, but I'll pay for the land, and I want to develop the HUD. If you want to like look at booking things, if you want to look at building the storylines, you've got a head for that. Sure, fine, fair enough. So this would be in the same sense of, again, he was the owner of the land. We considered him the owner of the Fed, but the operations of everything from planning out training, hiring, firing, booking, scripting, merch making, progression of SL Wrestling in general, all were left in the hands of myself and maybe like 1 or 2 other people when they had the ability to jump in. Alpin specifically focused on just loving being a part of that, paying for it, really sponsoring that financially. So back then, my whole thing, my idea towards booking is very similar to the way that it is now. If we're not booking for the idea of the enjoyment of the people watching, we are going to lose people in the long run. We need to give things that are entertaining, because if people are coming to watch, we should at least make an active effort to entertain them. And we had some of the best characters, some of the best builds, some of the best storylines that we could, because we had a lot of people that were motivated, and that just kept leading to more and more interest. So Alpin trusted me to handle pretty much everything with the management of SLCW. And he just made sure that the lights stayed on and the HUD kept working. And I mean, back then we had 10 moves. Not 10 moves as like 10 finishers and then 50 side, 10 moves. That's it. And you had to do matches with that. So Alpin was actively working on building that up. But yeah, as far as my side of it went, it was I treated it like a full-time job because I could. I enjoyed that side of it, and I got really tired of the idea that something that seemed so fun could be ruined by the same thing that killed e-fedding and general RP sims in the first place, and that's politics and favoritism and unfair booking. So a lot of the booking decisions that we made at that point weren't based on that. It was literally who is putting on a good match, who's getting crowd responses, who's getting responses from people that have no connection to them, and then really booking up around that. And it worked. I mean, we filled the sim every single week. It was incredible to see the responses that we were getting to everything. Like, if you weren't at the show an hour early, you weren't getting in. It was that level of insanity for a year and a half. So yeah, it was just a really unique time to do that, and I'd like to believe that based on the talent that we had and the fact that they gave me a lot to work with, I was able to book them perfectly with each other, and everybody wanted to do more because they could see how much fun everybody else was having. So that's a conversation that could take an hour-long podcast alone if I got into it.
Oh, I guess on that front, what are some of the most memorable moments to you from back then? Like, well, like in terms of like the some of the biggest like matches, biggest events, and the like.
So I will give you one as quickly as possible, because the people that know about this match and the people that were there will tell you there was an energy that existed that I never imagined could exist. And I'm going to preface this by saying, if you're a Fed owner, stop telling everybody in your Fed what you're doing with your shows. I don't know why Fed owners do this. I don't know why they post cards and winners and stuff like that. Let your own people be fans of your show. And one of the best examples of that, we had Shinja Yugajin, I think is his name. Now he goes by Nick Sin. He's got a couple other alts and things that he wrestles with. Tenzin Shinja Nick was going up against Karma's alt, Vince Easterwood. And Vince was the church boy. And he was meant to be this guy who was like really, I mean, his character looked twiggy, he looked very clean cut, looked like he just walked out of the Book of Mormon, like that kind of level of appearance. And Shinja was just our ultra heel, dominant force kind of thing. But he wasn't originally a heel. He was a face character, and he lost a match and like snapped. And we built this whole thing around Vince is like, hey, look, I'm concerned about you. I want to be concerned about you because you seem different. You seem like something's bothering you, and I just want to make sure you're okay. And it was this really, really unique way of looking at how we could build this story up, because my whole thing was I want to build a story around two characters that doesn't need the title belt to sell the story. Because again, I think that's one thing a lot of people mistake is they think, oh, if it doesn't have the championship involved, it can't be as influential or impactful. And that's bullshit. And anybody that tells you that doesn't know what they're talking about. And I will fight to the death about that. It's legitimately something that I can make these two characters have a main event battle, and then even beyond that, put a championship in it, and it didn't matter. And we let it up for about 2 months. Also, if you're not booking 2 to 3 months out, start doing it. I promise you will see better. Even if you don't know the people that can be a part of it, book it out seriously and see where you get with that. So we booked it out about 2-3 months, and we got to a point where Shinja won the championship, but he won through this brutalization of his opponent. And Vince was like, hey, look, I get that you won, but like, my God, like he came out and, the idea of big strong guy doing anything to a female wrestler or valet was, obviously going to get heel heat easily. And he attacked somebody, and then he attacked the woman that was with him. And Vince is just like, enough, dude. You got to fucking find a way to calm down from this. You have to. And we were getting people that were really interested. Like, people started really getting behind Shinja and not getting behind Vince. Because they're like, Vince is annoying me. Vince and Shinja, in those moments, without anybody realizing, switched positions. Where now Vince was a heel and Shinja was being praised as the face, because now Shinja's heel was Vince. And we brought it up to the first Inferno match that I can remember that we did. We may have done one prior to that, but if we did, it was not memorable at all. Was April Fool's Hardcore Rules. Shinja is set to do the match, and I don't remember if it was at that show, but like that show was normally our big one that we did a lot of hardcore stuff, or a lot of like the special rules matches. And Maxwell Ryan, who was originally known as Big Evil back in the SLCW and DCWF days, had won the our Money in the Bank ladder match thing, and he was set to be the next super heel, and everybody was thinking it was going to be Shinja and Maxwell and all this, but nobody really knew where we were going to go with that. So that match had finished. We get to the final match, and it's Shinja and Vince. And Vince is just saying, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to do anything with this. Vince is getting the shit kicked out of him left and right in this match. And to have a full sim of people who aren't gesture spamming. It's not one person hitting the applause button 50 times. Legitimately, people are typing messages about how they feel about this, are saying like, Vince is going to die, throw him through the fires, get him, like truly giving Vince this beautiful heat. Shinja has him beaten, and he just, again, says, I'm not going to fight you. And Shinja just finally, hasn't really talked much. Shinja just finally screams, like, why? And he goes, because you hurting me is not making you happy. And Shinja stopped and fucking turned around and walked through the fire, set himself on fire, and left the match. This was for the championship. And yet nobody realized that it was. Even as we're talking about it, like, oh my God, Vince won the championship? But it didn't matter because that wasn't the focus of what we were doing. We started calling it into the show. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate your time. I don't know what's happened here. I guess Vince is the champion. And Vince is like, I don't want to deal with this. Vince has got, burn marks and scorch marks. He's beaten and bloodied and everything, but he didn't go in the fire. And right as we're calling it out, nobody on the roster knew except for me and one other person. We blast Big Evil's music, and Big Evil comes out and cashes in the contract in that moment. Everybody is now behind Vince. They didn't believe that Vince was going to win this. There was no way we were going to let Vince win it. What a swerve. Holy shit, look at this amazing moment. People are, like, again, the chat is getting flooded. There's a note card that's out there with this. Chat is flooded with people that are responding in so many different ways. People are like, oh my God, where are they going to go with this now? And Big Evil comes out, and I swear to God, if the most commonly heard thing in the chat was not, oh, fuck you, I would be shocked. People were legitimately giving the biggest heel heat I've ever seen to Big Evil coming down, cashing it in, beating an already beaten Vince to get the title. And we were going to build that up to, Big Evil versus Shinja, because Shinja was going to go back to being a face. And it was just this explosive energy, because we went from there's no championship, we don't need the championship to be involved. Now there is a championship involved, but it's not even remotely the biggest thing, to now we've got a heel that is clearly there motivated by a championship. And it just was this thing that nobody knew. I got to the back and we did the after show hangout, and everybody else on the roster was shocked. Now, if I told everybody that, they would have just been like, oh, okay, yeah, here's this cool thing that's going on. But it inspired them to then go, I want to do better so I can be in things like that. I want to have those things. And that, to me, still, after almost 15 years, stands out to me. Like I said, there's note cards. You can ask people to see the insane reaction that it got. There was that. We had other matches. We had other things that clearly would stand out that I would say, we had matches that, I could sit and talk about for hours about how incredible it was to see these two people do what they do best, and to do it in front of a full active sim. But yeah, of all of them, I still think to this day, and there are people that were around at that point that will still say that's one of the greatest moments they've ever witnessed with this, and very few things, if any, have come close to the energy that existed in that moment. And I'm really happy that I got to be a part of that.
You had said that it would take an hour. Sometimes you would have to, you would have to take like an hour before to get into the show. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to get on the land. I'm sure that there were some fans that were potentially willing to tell you kind of what for and give you feedback. How did you all manage to gather feedback from back then?
So I always like the idea that if you think you're too good for advice, you're the person that needs it the most. And I would always try to listen to people. I have had people come up and recommend storylines, both internally and externally, that I said absolutely fucking not to. Like, immediately would turn it down. And the moment I tell people what some of these are, they go like, oh yeah, no, that would have been terrible. But I've had people that have come up and said like, hey, you've got these two people that are doing really good together. Why don't you put them together? And I've looked at it and I went, you know what? That's a good idea. Yeah, I could do that. Sure, why not? There were a lot of times that, there's the curse of just throwing people into matches and seeing what sticks happens. But if you're not doing anything actively with it, people aren't going to care. So we would look to see not only are people giving us storyline ideas or feedback or anything like that, but the kind of positive feedback we were getting from people that had no affiliation to these people, that were just generally fans. And we'd see, hey, these people are responding really positively to these two in the ring. They're putting on good matches. They're doing good stuff. Let's get them into something. Let's get them into building a story. Let's do something with their characters. You're going to get people that are going to come up and suggest the weirdest things. Like, hey, why don't you put these guys in a table, ladder, chairs? Fine. I mean, we don't need to. It's not necessary to go right to the extreme. But we still would listen. I mean, I would sit and talk with people for hours. It blows my mind when a lot of these feds disappear after a show. Granted, a lot of them do go out and they'll chat with people and stuff like that. Any Fed owner that's worth their weight should be willing to listen to any advice. Don't take it if it's bad advice, but you should never feel like you're better than anybody else. Because I consistently was the person that was that fan in the audience at other shows, or even starting out, that went, hey, I'm going to give you some feedback. I think this person is worth pushing. And they wouldn't, or if they did, then suddenly, boom, huge amounts of attention, and it was great. And if they don't, they don't. I mean, you also get a lot of egos. You get a lot of people that want to do it for themselves, or they're trying to push a friend, and maybe it wasn't the right time. It would just depend. I mean, even you as a Fed owner, I'm sure that you've heard everything from "wow, that's a great idea" all the way down to "I would rather rip teeth out of my skull with a rusty pair of pliers than do that." And it's the unfortunate side of things that has not changed, I'm sure, in the 16 plus years that we've done this.
Yeah,
But
there are
yeah,
definitely some common threads.
yeah. I mean, like, I would say more of the time that I reacted negatively to things were things that came inside. Horses Morrissey, I know she gets a lot of love. Horses Morrissey one day decided to do a complete gimmick change and just made herself a satyr and came down in a fiery blood skull throne. Didn't tell anybody, and I immediately was like, absolutely not. Like, I don't know what this is, but no. We had another person who wanted to, who literally sent in a card where they killed somebody in the middle of the match, and I went, "You cannot kill your opponent and then pin him." Like, my running gag with that though is if the 2 count, or if the pinfall would have had a 2 count due to them kicking out through rigor mortis, I'd have given the go ahead. I'd have given the green light. I'd have main evented that match. But no, it's you're going to hear a lot of bad ideas, but don't think that just because you don't deserve to give it at least the time for consideration.
There's always good idea, there's always good mixed in with bad ideas. Like there are things
Yeah.
that you could take and like it's like this aspect of it is really no, that's not going to jive too well, but this part of it though could be
Yeah.
reworked into something great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess following on that thread, in addition to that, do you have any other tips for like people who are getting into Fed owning on like building, maintaining fan bases and rosters, like navigating the ship through like particular challenges they may face, and generally just managing to run the ship in the best way that they can?
Sure. You know, and this is a difficult one because I think a lot of people get an idea of how they want to run a Fed, and advice. Uh, Advice is something that sometimes people don't want to hear with a positive tone. So I understand that some of this might not hit anybody who may need to hear it. It's not calling out any specific Fed. This is just all generalized. But there is, I think, something that a lot of people I've talked to lately have noticed where the attendance is dropped down. And you'll see, I try to go to as many shows as I can. I can say that I've been to every SL Wrestling Fed for multiple shows, at least a couple times. I don't always get the ability to go to every show in a week, but I've seen a lot of them. You're going to hit a lot of walls. You're going to have a lot of difficulty. You're going to see problems with certain things. Trying to figure out booking, trying to figure out scheduling, trying to make these things work. It's not easy. And I think a lot of people become complacent. They become overworked with it, overwhelmed with it, and don't really know how to deal with that. And it shows. It 100% shows. One of the metrics that I use when I try to gauge how fans in general are appreciating a show is I look and see how many people are there at the start of the show versus the end. Because if you have 30 people in the audience and 20 of them disappear before the main event, that should be a roaring sign that something is wrong with your show, that it's just not interesting. And I've been to shows that will keep their fan base there the entire time. They may only have 1 or 2 people leave. As a matter of fact, they may go up as it gets closer to the main event. So there's a lot of, and this is difficult because again, it can fall into a territory that I think a lot of people have difficulty with the hearing of without thinking maybe they're being attacked, and it's not. There is 100% a problem with fans being kept at shows. And it comes from the idea that people are just throwing things together. You need to keep things coherent. You need to build storylines. You need to be able to do that stuff. If you don't have that in you, running a Fed is one of the hardest things in the world to do. If you're not saying my interest in performing for the crowd, for the fans, actually for the fans' enjoyment, is not at the forefront, you will fail. 100% of the time, you will fail. If you are, I've had to talk with a number of Fed owners where they say, well, we get 60 people at our show. And I look and I go, yeah, but 35 of them are backstage. 10 of them out in the audience are wearing your Fed's group tag. That leaves only 10, 15 people that are there, and half of them are AFK. You're performing for 3 or 4 people, maybe at most, that aren't affiliated. And that, you can't just fall back on, well, we're successful enough. Always look to be getting people engaged, be looking at fans and seeing like, hey, am I getting actual engagement? Am I getting the proper number of people in on this? Is it just my people? Is it people that are associated with those people, or am I actually getting people engaging? Understand that it's incredibly difficult, especially right now where up until I want to say a couple years ago, there were too many wrestlers and not enough Feds. Now there are too many Feds and not enough wrestlers, and you're dealing with a significant shift in the way that booking works, in programming characters into your shows work, in the way that you manage a lot of that. Because again, how do you book somebody who is new to your Fed that's a champion at another Fed? How do you create a viable storyline that works in your setting for somebody who's already on a predetermined path with their character at another one? You'll hit that. You will absolutely hit that issue time and time again. Keep in mind the fun aspect of it. If you're not actually providing people with fun, if it's just that, then it's a chore. And if you fall into that mentality, you've lost the joy, I would think, of what we're doing here. Otherwise it's a Fed performing, spending all this time. If you lost the fun, then all the time spent booking is lost. All the time for the wrestlers writing cards and performing is lost. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people that will go to shows time in and time out and still go, I couldn't tell you a single storyline, a single build that's going on right now. Not one. So really focus on the storytelling aspect, the fun of it. I'm currently working with Pain Inc. I'm not on staff or anything with them. I'm just helping out. But I love the idea that what they're doing is, look, we're going to have fun with it. And if you aren't actively having fun with it, then it not only doesn't fit, it legitimately is the antithesis of what they're trying to do. And you can see the reactions that people are having, the reactions that people are getting with that. About a year ago, BCW was one of my favorite shows to go to, and even lately, I know that they've been struggling because they've been having some trouble with trying to get things moving with that. I still love BCW. Josh Poffo is a guy with a really great mind who I think just is suffering with the general overall interest in SL wrestling fading away. But if you can get that going, you'll keep the people that you have. If you can get the fun going, that's something that I think BCW really excelled at, and it kept people the whole way through, start to finish. There's so much that people can do, and there's so much that you can critique or you can offer advice on. Listen to your people, give people opportunities. I'm going to say one thing too that I know this is going to ruffle a feather or two. If people are not entertaining your fans, stop fucking booking them. Put them through training, work with them, do what you have to do. But if you're trying to protect the enjoyment of one person at the cost of everybody else involved, wrestlers they perform with, commentators that have to commentate their matches, the fans that may go, oh, okay, it's time for me to go get a drink. You're killing your own show by the shrugs and the good enoughs that go beyond that. And I think that's a key thing that a lot of Feds miss out on, is it just becomes going through the motions. fine, these people are here. We'll just throw these out there and do whatever. And there's no build, there's no entertainment, and the crowd that might be 40 people is now 30, now 25, now 20, it's now 15. If you're losing that momentum, it's so hard to get that back. So have fun, do it for the fans. Always be looking for ways that you can be better than you were. Offer critique to your wrestlers. If people are doing, if you're not happy with the way a show went, be better. Work that into everything that you're doing. Try to find ways forward that allow you to have your next show be better than your last one, or your next show will just be less. Only other things, make sure that you trust the people that you're working with. Make sure that you've got people around you that have people that'll challenge you. Get some good creative minds with it. Get good commentators. A bad match can be saved by good comms. Good comms will kill any good match. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. A bad match, wow. A bad match can be saved by good commentary. A good match will always be killed by bad commentators. And it's nothing to say against any specific ones, but just make sure that you're working with them. Give them that excitement. Stop reading the goddamn cards. Be excited. Be energetic about it. And as a Fed owner, as a Fed manager, know these things. Look at it. And if it doesn't fit, if it's not entertaining you to watch these things happen, then it's sure as hell not entertaining the people out there. And really focus on those things. Find ways to always be looking for ways that you can tighten any bolts that are loose. And understand that it's difficult. Now, I've seen people do the exact things that they should do start to finish and still fail. It's not easy. And the landscape is packed to the rafters right now with Feds. But if you're going to do it, always set your standard higher every week and try to achieve it. You don't have to be draconian. You don't have to be an asshole about it. But always look for the gaps, the cracks in the foundation that you can fill in, and put fans first. If fans aren't reacting, what are you doing this for? What are you putting the time in for? There's so much that you can tell Fed owners if somebody's interested. Right now, I'd say if you're interested in opening a Fed, maybe wait a minute, because the landscape is really full. But if you're interested, put fans first. Always, always, always put fans first. And if that's not happening, then change it until it does.
Heck yeah. You have you've been here since the beginning, effectively, and you've had periods where you've been in and then you pulled out and then you came back in. How's this future, I guess, of the SL wrestling? Is it something that you look back on and you're like, wow, this is something that is larger than I ever could have imagined? Or is it like it's about where I would have thought 10 years ago? And like, what is looking back, is it something where you could have predicted kind of where this went, if that makes sense?
So back during the first year, we joked about if this is around in 5 years, we'll be shocked. It's been 15, 16, 17 years at this point. So, 100%. The landscape is very different than I think a lot of people would have expected. And some of it's just the tenacity of it all. Some of it is the general community that exists here. There's already a wonderfully large community that's built around this, that getting into it is fairly easy. I think one of the things, so I'll tell you what surprised me, because maybe that'll be the easier thing. I came back into Second Life about 1.5 years ago. And the first thing that I'll make mention of, and I will bang this drum as loud as possible every time I get a chance to. Holy shit. Furry Feds, Anthro Feds used to be the butt of the joke of every SL Wrestling Fed that they owned. And coming back in, I have seen the bar raised incredibly by anthro feds to a point that I was even shocked to see, like, we've joked about some of the old feds and the old videos that we watched, and there wasn't a single anthro fed that I would say, quote unquote, did it right. There might have been. I just wasn't privy to it. I wasn't aware of those situations. But anthro feds were done being taken as a joke and made people stand up and pay attention. And I think that's incredible to see. I think it's great to see that the landscape used to be filled with at least half of the feds that were open at any given point were what I would call fuck you feds. Feds that were created as like a fine, I'll just go take my ball and play somewhere else kind of things. And they're never really well ran. They're normally things that start with like a lot of people going, "Yeah, I'm with you," and then it just devolves and falls apart. And that doesn't really seem to be the case anymore. You'll see that there are people are trying new things. They're experimenting with new things, even if there's things that that the differences aren't extensive. They're still finding ways to push forward with that. So I think that's impressive. I mean, anybody who was around back in 2016 will tell you that the landscape is entirely different than it is now. Production value is outstanding. The one thing I will say to any Fed owner, any Fed that currently exists or any Fed that's going to exist in the future, if you want to see the best location I have ever seen for a Fed setup, go watch a UFW show. UFW's arena is outstanding. It's top notch. It's the perfect size. It's the perfect layout. It's everything with that. The production value is above and beyond. And you can tell, like, they put a lot of time and thought and effort into it. I've used them as an example for many other Feds that I've helped out with, and the small changes that they've done to really emulate the same way that UFW has with their arena have made massive, significant differences. So production value, way better than I could have ever imagined it would be. I'm shocked that one of the biggest issues used to be too many wrestlers, not enough feds. That's changed. The idea of multi-fedding used to be something that was extremely rare. And now you've got people that are wrestling 6 matches in a week at 6 different feds or 4 different feds and 2 shows, some of them. So it's definitely changed in a lot of ways with that. I think a lot of stuff is going to stay the same just with the general nature of everything here. But yeah, it was incredible to see that there are feds that aren't all trying to be. They're not doing one of two sides of extremes. They're not either trying to be what everybody else is trying to be, or they're not trying to be so unique that they kind of lose their steam after the first couple shows. And I think that's really impressive to see. Again, none of us expected this would last for 5 years. And then when it surpassed 5 years, we're like, it's not going to hit 10 years. And now we're at 16. So God only knows. I have a feeling SL Wrestling won't die until Second Life gets shut down. And that's just what it is.
Heck yeah. I guess on that note, since it's we made it 16 years, so it's like, do you have any predictions or hopes for kind of what the future holds for SL Wrestling, provided that Linden doesn't shut down or anything like that?
Yeah. I've talked with a lot of Fed owners. I've worked with a lot of Feds since I've come back, and there's been a shift, and I think a lot of people can say that over the last year or so, where it feels like a lot of that energy and excitement and entertainment and consistency in SL Wrestling is kind of went away. Not fully, but at least enough to be noticeable. I would like to believe that we've seen what would technically be the worst of it, and it's scooping back up into people having more interest. I think there's A lot of people who want to put on a good show, who want to entertain people, who get their joy out of the voluntary time they spend to this entertaining people. And I think we're seeing a resurgence of that. Um, as far as predictions overall, I couldn't have even told you we would be here 5 years ago. So I'm not going to even begin to guess, because you can get up and go downstairs and make yourself dinner, come back, and 3 feds have closed, 2 more feds have opened, 15 new wrestlers have showed up, 10 have retired. Like, it's crazy how rapidly the landscape can and often does change. But yeah, I'd like to. I think instead of a prediction, I will just say I would like to see by this time next year that the general interest has built back up. That a lot of the people that I know that are fans of the shows, that want to go and be fans of what you're doing, any Fed is doing, start feeling like they are aware of what's happening, aware of wrestlers that they're not there to support. They actually want to see what you're doing. They want to see what you're promoting and the matches that you're putting on and why it's important to be there. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see more more people that run a Fed with the idea of that was great, we could do better, and really promoting that. The number of times I've heard Fed wrestlers at Fed say, I would love nothing more than to have somebody critique my matches and tell me what I could do. I would love to see that happening more. Hey, your match was great, but here's some points that you could do to work this up. I think if we could get back a lot of the joy that you could feel in the atmosphere about a year ago, with just how the promotions would do really entertaining shows, really entertaining matches, where you could go in, know nothing about what's going on, and by the end of the show, you're buying merch because you really enjoyed what you were watching. If we could get back to that point, you're going to see a resurgence of interest. So I would hope those are the things. There's clearly things that need to kind of go away in the sense of that. I think there's some standards that people have set that are actively hurting their own Feds or are hurting shows in general. You, above all people, know how much I bang on about match times. I think matches are way too long. I think people don't realize how bad that is and how much it causes people to tune out. I think that there's nothing wrong with shows being shorter. And I think that it's one of the reasons why you see people leaving shows early, is just because they go, look, this match should have ended 5 minutes ago and we're still going.
Have a tight
So
45 as opposed to a bloated free.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's all hopes, it's wishes. I don't know what's going to change with it. I know that, there's a lot of Feds right now that I know are going through a lot of turmoil, and I feel for them. Some of them got dealt really bad hands. Some of them are trying to find their way through situations. Some of them are just struggling because they may have painted themselves into a corner. But I don't wish ill on any of them. I do hope that they can all kind of find their way out of that, because, again, as somebody who came back in, and I didn't want to work with a Fed, and I'm not even working directly with Pain Inc. as a staff member. I'm just there to help and offer what I can because I appreciate what they're doing. I want to be a fan. There are, I'll say this loud and clear, there are people who I know personally that want to be a fan of SL Wrestling. Not just, hey, I'm going to go support a friend. Not just, hey, I work at this Fed and I need to be there because I'm not booked, but I don't want to be online and not be there. They want to be fans of what you are doing. They want to be entertained. They want to enjoy the performances that you're putting on. And if you're not hitting that, if you're losing that, you're missing out on one of the greatest things that makes it worth it for everyone here. Otherwise, attendances start dropping, people start getting less interested, Feds start closing because nobody's available. Nobody wants that. So as far as predictions, couldn't tell you because it's all going to depend on what people choose to do from here on out. But what I'd like to see is I'd like to see people try to bring back that energy, really go back to being fan focused and putting in the extra efforts to correct a lot of that stuff and really, really, really just strive to put on good shows. And if they can, I think you're going to see this landscape change not only to be as good as it was a year ago, but to be even better. You're going to see shows that are filling Sims every single time with active people because they want to see the stuff you're putting on. So, no predictions, just a hope. That would be what I'd love to see again.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think, let me look here. I think that's about all the time that we have for this episode of Ringmasters. Eric, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us for this. Oh,
Absolutely.
do you have any pluggables that you wanna shout out before we end here for today?
Yeah, I'm gonna do two things real quick. First off, I work with Paint Inc. I love Paint Inc. They're doing great things. I love the people that I'm with there. We have done nothing but just laugh through everything, and that's how a Fed should be. It's people having fun, and our fun is contagious out to that. So, Paint Inc. If you don't know about them, Anthro Wrestling Fed. I'm the only human that's actively on the payroll, quote unquote, that's over there. But I love them. I love them to death. They're doing really good things. If you're looking for that kind of fun, I highly recommend going and checking them out because they are 100% hitting that. Outside of that, one of the biggest things I will also say that I think needs to change is there are so many anthro feds that have no idea about the human side of wrestling. Like, I legitimately the other day brought up ECWF, VWE, BCW, and people went, I don't even know what those feds are. But then I go to these other feds. I go to VWE. I go to BCW. I talk to people at the human feds, and they go, I know nothing on the anthro side of things. Go to the other feds. Look into them. Find what you can find out of this because I guarantee if you do that, you will find shows that are entertaining. I don't know why there's a weird gap that still exists there, but there is. Go to other shows. Try to be fans with these shows. And then feds, notice the people that want to be fans of yours. If there's stuff that's holding you back, work around, fix it. Do what you need to do that. But I would just say, as a promotion of everything with SL Wrestling, people on the anthro side, look into the human side. People on the human side, look into the anthro side. There are so many amazing things that are being done that I think people are missing out of completely based on this arbitrary, completely unnecessary separation that exists there. And I would love nothing more than to see that change. So, yeah, outside that, no, come check out Paint Inc. And go to other shows, find new people, support them, be a fan.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. My name's DJV. Come check out DAW, Decibel M for Wrestling. And thank you massively to Vince Aftermath and everybody over at Premier Wrestling for allowing us to be able to do this. This is truly an incredible show, an incredible opportunity to kind of talk about past, present, and the future of our community. So, yeah, we will catch you next time right here on RingMasters. Until next time, have a great night, or day, or evening, or morning, wherever you are, and we will see you next time.